Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. This is the Williamson County School Board meeting. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Board members, if you will record your attendance.
There are 9 members present.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance and Moment of Silence, and School Board Member Sheila Cleveland is going to lead us tonight.
Please face the flag and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The next item on our agenda is items of particular public interest. This is the time of the night that we get to hear from members of the public who have signed up in advance to come and speak with us. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that. We have a little over 20 members of the public who have signed up tonight. So that's going to allow everyone about a minute apiece to speak. I'll call you up 2 at a time, but you don't have to come until it's actually your turn to speak, so you're not having to wait behind the scenes. But Ravita Rockman is our first speaker, followed by Shandas Parish.
Good evening. I've had the chance to hear the perspective of a victim of racial bullying as well as talk to one of the parents who's had a child disciplined for racial bullying. It's a tale of 2 vastly different experiences. In one scenario, the perpetrator's family didn't raise their son to use racial slurs and were heartbroken to learn that their son had used one. That student was sent to ISS and nothing restorative was done. He got to skip classes, interact on his phone all day at ISS. The punishment did nothing to prevent him from doing this act again. In the next scenario, the student was told, "Shut up, N-word," twice before saying, "I'll kill all the black students at Indy High School." She will not forget what that student said, nor will she forget the lack of appropriate consequences. None of her classmates supported her, which is scary to witness the silence of others. A threat that we can no longer take for granted during times when school shootings, we must trust the person means what they said. We do not feel this was handled at the same level for offenses based on the WCS Code of Conduct, showing the punishment to be expulsion or ALC. If we want to truly do something about the problem of racial bullying in WCS, we have to look at the discipline disparities. Our district's bullying numbers are steadily increasing. We have black students being sent to ALC for cursing, while we have a white student who makes a threat to kill and doesn't get that same measure of discipline. The system is flawed. We are no longer living in the days where we cannot take someone at their word, and we expect WCS to follow their own discipline policy with the seriousness this complaint deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did want to call out the time is up on that. Is it showing up on that screen? Okay, thank you. And go ahead. And then following Shandas Parish is Vanessa Byers. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Shandas Parrish, and I'm here as a parent of 2 children in the WCS schools. And I'm asking you all to join many other state school boards in passing a resolution opposing Governor Lee's private school voucher program. This program will cost almost $800 million as proposed, and programs like this have been proven time and again across the country to provide no educational benefit. My biggest concern is the detrimental impact this will have on our public schools and our children. Proponents try to say this will not impact public school budgets, but when the money follows the child, that is directly impacting the bottom line of our schools. Expenses like electricity and facility maintenance cannot be reduced proportionally, so important programs like music, art, and sports will be the ones cut when we can't hit our bottom line. Why bother passing a resolution? I think it sends a message to our community that you prioritize the interests of our public school children and that you won't sit back quietly and let our state legislators undermine our district's goal to provide the best education for our children. I hope you will step up and send a loud and clear message that in Williamson County, we prioritize our children over political games. Thank you.
Thank you. And my apologies. Apologies for mispronouncing your name. Vanessa Byers. Next, we'll have Jody Barnwell-Smith.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Byers. This is my husband, John, and we have 4 kids in Williamson County Schools. We have 2 at Ravenwood High School, 1 at Sunset, and we have a kindergartner at Jordan Elementary. And I'm here tonight because I am concerned about my daughter at Jordan Elementary. I sent an email to all of you earlier today. I don't know if you received it or not, but there is a lot more information than this 1 minute will provide me. I'm concerned about, Georgia has a severe allergy, and she was failed to be flagged in the system. And I found out 8 weeks into the school year that Georgia was not flagged in the system in the cafeteria. I found out by accident by calling to find out how I find allergy information and was told that it is not listed online. That anytime if Georgia wants to eat in the cafeteria, I should call into central office and let them know what Georgia would like to eat. And they would then look it up for me and let me know if that is safe for her to eat. Then my kindergartner should go to school and order this. So that has sent me down a path of calling the USDA, well, actually talking to Brian King and James Rometti and also Mr. Golden through email and Jay Galbraith. And so where we are, I know I'm out of time. I have spoken with the USDA, Tennessee Department of Education. I know we're following up, but I'm here to ask for your help to make this better for Georgia and for all kids in Williamson County.
Thank you very much. Our next guest is Jody Barnwell-Smith, followed by Doritas Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. I'm the mother of a Grassland Elementary student in District 8. And across the state, many rural school board leaders have spoken out against the voucher program. They know the data shows that vouchers will not help their kids. Instead, the voucher program will take away resources from public schools and hurt their most vulnerable children. Vouchers spend substantially more taxpayer money per student than we spend today, and with abysmal results. We only know this because of data collected on the pilot voucher schools in Tennessee. Going forward, our legislators propose collecting no such data to show results one way or the other and requiring no accountability. Our children will suffer, our schools will suffer, and our state will endure the long-term effects. In Arizona, the voucher cost has exploded to many times the original projections. It's just not fair to give our taxpayer money to unaccountable private schools. I'm here today to call you up as leaders in our county and our state to write and pass a resolution against Tennessee's voucher program. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Doritas Jones, followed by Janet Schaus.
Hello, I'm Dorita Jones, mother of 3 Independence High School students. I'm here because my daughter endured racial bullying at Independence High School on February the 2nd. On February the 2nd, a classmate lashed out at Elena Reed, calling her the N-word. She was shocked, and she told him that he was not supposed to say that, and that was inappropriate. Well, the classmate came back and called her the N-word again, and said F you, and that he would shoot all the blacks. Elena was stunned. She immediately went to the principal's office and reported the incident. I was immediately alerted of what had happened, and I was also told there would be a full investigation. So I met with the school on Monday because this event is concerning. My daughter received a threat along with everyone else that looks like her in the school. I was told that I asked for an incident report, and also they told me there would be no formal report until the investigation was complete. So once the investigation was complete, we learned that no one stood with her. The student that was standing right by her to hear her classmate say he would shoot all the blacks, all of them stood together. They didn't stand with her. That left Elena feeling alone and humiliated. So after I felt that this threat was not taken seriously, the student was removed from her class, but the student is still attending class at Independence High School. She does not feel safe, and she feels targeted. So how are we going to keep students safe that look like her? And that's not the only incident. Thank you.
Our next guest is Janet Schaus, followed by Carol Newhouser.
Hi, I'm Janet Schaus. I don't have kids in the public school system anymore. My youngest child is 28 years old. He's a child with autism, an adult with autism. He entered school here at 3 years old and he exited at 22. I speak as a member of the disability community. First of all, this voucher proposal is a long-anticipated step toward privatizing public education and dismantling our public schools. So there's that. If the state has this kind of money to spend, why aren't they spending it on our public schools? Why are we giving it to private schools? I'm particularly concerned because our kids don't get the supports and services that they need. The kids with disabilities are oftentimes having to have their parents get advocates to get the appropriate supports and services. But I'm a big fan of public schools because private schools discriminate. There aren't public or private schools that would take my child. They just wouldn't. The vast majority would not even consider him. And then if a lot of folks pull their kids to go to private schools, we are going to be left with the highest need students, the students whose parents can't afford to supplement that $7,000 coupon, the parents who can't arrange transportation, the students who can't qualify like mine for private schools. And WCS is one of the draws for this county. If our reputation begins to suffer because we are left, and I don't say this unkindly, if we're left with the lowest need students, the highest need students in this district, our reputation is going to suffer, and our property values are going to suffer, and people are not going to want to pay taxes to improve a system if their kid's in private school. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Carol Newhouser, followed by Peggy Kingsbury.
I'm going to have to shorten mine again. Anyway, I'm Carol Newhouser, and I'm tonight speaking as a citizen and a taxpayer. George Washington emphasized the importance and the need for public education. He said that the purpose of education is to create a strong economical base and to preserve the government and to provide liberty for students. I am again here for all students in the K through 3 curriculum, and I have somewhat of an ally because I wrote Dr. Sarah Morrison, who said, ultimately, the pedagogically techniques used to deliver instruction are driven by the local district and school leaders and teachers themselves, indicating that the district has some leeway in instruction. But as I look at the curriculum for K through 3, we are lacking citizenship involvement. First of all, children's brains, it's the optimal time for them to learn about themselves and human relationships. That's what the brain is working on. And we are teaching them subject matter. And that's not what we should be teaching them. We should be going along with brain development and teaching them human growth and development and who they are and how to relate to other people, period.
Thank you. Our next guest is Peggy Kingsbury, followed by Claire Jones.
Thank you, and thank you for serving. I also would like to see our school board members sign a resolution against vouchers. And I've done a lot of reading about it, as I know all of you have, and my peers here will probably give you much better reasons than I'm going to. But I'm going to give you an analogy. My husband and I love to work out at the Williamson County Rec Center. It's wonderful. It's close to our home. It offers everything we need, and it's inexpensive because it's subsidized by Williamson County. I love that everyone can go there. I love that I can see my friends, young and old alike. We could go to Lifetime Fitness and work out, couldn't we? The treadmills might be a little bit newer. It might be a little more exclusive. And if we chose to do that, I would not expect my taxpayer money to go to it. I would not expect them to pay for it or you to pay for it. That would be my choice. Please sign the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Claire Jones, followed by Ashley Webster.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Claire Jones. I'm a mom of 3. I have 2 students in the district and 1 soon will be. I love our schools. They are my children's community. Shout out to Mr. Aller, bus driver. Voucher expansion poses a threat to that community and others like it. I don't need to tell you the data regarding vouchers does not demonstrate efficacy. I don't need to tell you our property taxes will go up and our schools will suffer. I don't need to tell you it's fiscally irresponsible. I think you already know that. I'm asking you to stand up for our kids at a time when our Senator Jack Johnson has flip-flopped on this issue and another legislator, Gino Bolso, is currently suing this body. I expect more from elected officials. So I'm asking you to please pass a resolution against public vouchers. I want you to stand with our schools, stand with our teachers, our communities, and most importantly, our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Ashley Webster, followed by Diane Cochran.
I am Ashley Webster, and I live in Franklin, and I have 2 adult children that graduated from Williamson County Schools. And I'm here to say that while you're not state legislators and you're not going to get to vote on this bill, you are here serving at the municipal level because you care deeply about public schools. As board members for the state's best school district, in my opinion, you have influence. And I would like for you to use that influence by passing a resolution against the voucher program. You will not be alone. Campbell County Schools, Jacksboro, Tennessee has already done so. This proposed voucher program will serve 2% of the 1 million students in Tennessee, so it's a very minority of students that will be served. You're using public funds for private schools. Arizona's had a bad experience with it. They spent too much money. Over 75% of those kids were already in private school before they even implemented the program. And in Louisiana, they scored poorly, even worse than during the COVID pandemic or Hurricane Katrina. Enough said.
Thank you. Our next guest is Diane Cochran, followed by Denise Underjack.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. My name is Diane Cochran, and I'm a former WCS parent. So with the statewide voucher program, money sent to private schools will leave our schools underfunded. For example, if there are some students from one of our schools that goes to a private school, the public school can't reduce their spending to make up for the removed funding. So teachers, administrators, food service, transportation, maintenance, utilities, all that remains relatively the same. Instead, our schools will have to cut services that they provide, like staff and courses. This would provide those in public schools, especially our neediest students, with an education substandard to what they receive today. And I would like to see WCS maintain the exceptional range of courses and services, especially for special needs kids, that are currently available for our students. Ultimately, the goal is to provide the best possible education for every student with the available resources. I would like to see our board stand unanimously against a statewide voucher program. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Denise Andrzejak, followed by Erica Boughton.
Good evening. I'm Denise Andrzejak of Franklin. I have no children or grandchildren in Williamson County schools, public or private. I'm simply interested in public education for my young friends that live here. So I am here tonight to voice my support for a resolution against school vouchers, and I really do thank you for allowing me the opportunity. After listening to your work session, there seems to be some difference of opinion among you. The Williamson County School Board. This resolution opens the choice of a private school education to all students and would lure many out of our community's public schools to reduce both numbers and budget for the county's business and of educating students. Other Tennessee county school boards have already voted to oppose vouchers. Spotlighted voucher efforts in Wisconsin and Ohio revealed no increased academic success there. But, open quotes, based on spring 2023 TCAP results from the Department of Education, Williamson County schools ranked highest overall in achievement and end-of-course performance, unquote. Williamson County School Board, I urge you to vote oppose the voucher resolution and protect public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Erica Boughton, followed by Michael Miller.
Hi, my name is Erica Boughton. I'm a mom of 3. So far, over 40 Tennessee district school boards have asked legislators to reject voucher programs, and I urge this board to do the same. Even if reporting and accountability measures are required, based on numerous other voucher programs, the only thing accountability is going to show us are the massive cost and academic underperformance. In Arizona, it's costing the state nearly $1 billion each school year. In other states, the majority of students who've received vouchers were already in private schools. Only 25% of Arizona vouchers went to children leaving public schools. And what happens to those children? Studies have shown record-breaking learning loss. Vouchers have become fraught with the same culture war rhetoric plaguing our country and public school system, a way to escape so-called race and gender ideology, but in reality just signal intolerance. In Florida, some voucher-funded schools have banned LGBTQ kids from admittance. Pause and consider that. We need to invest in a school system that supports diversity, special education, free lunches, expanded mental health services, quality faculty and staff, and teacher retention. Vouchers undermine these goals, and it forces taxpayers to pay for 2 separate school systems. Accountability won't solve the problem. Please urge legislators to reject.
Our next guest is Michael Miller, followed by Laura Grenier.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Mike Miller. I'm a father of 2 children in WCS. I come here tonight to state that the parents of WCS students do not want vouchers in Williamson County, and I ask this board to steadfastly pass a resolution in support of what the parents want here in WCS. I'm going to make the argument a little more local for you. We have a $50.5 million budget shortfall next year that was talked about in your work session last week. This shortfall is going to cut things like interventionists and other special support services. On the flip side, we've got a voucher program which is going to give $7,000 to every private school student that wants to apply for one. The estimates that there's about 5,600 students in Williamson County who go to private schools. That's $40 million in vouchers a year. That's 80% of your budget shortfall right there. If that's not enough reason, I don't know what will be. The fact is the state has the money. Now it's up for you to go get it. Article 3, Section 2 of this Code of Conduct states that you will strive to secure resources that allow our employees to perform with excellence. That's your duty. That is your assigned duty as a school board member. So I ask you tonight, come to you tonight to ask you to please pass a resolution with requiring a yea or nay vote from all members of the board on to denounce the voucher program. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Laura Grenier, followed by Herbert Reed.
Good evening. My name is Laura Grenier. I raised my 4 children here in Williamson County Schools. I have 3 grandchildren that will be going to our incredible schools here. Before I get into what I came to speak about, I would like to speak about this issue of racism at Indy. All 4 of my children went to Indy. And if they were there now, and I heard this, how could I send my kids to that school? How? We have school shooter after school shooter after school shooter, and we have a child. There may not be the evidence against him because we don't have recording of that evidence and there is no backing, but this is not something to be ignored in any way. I could get in and out. The security measures at Indy today are the same as they were when my children were at Indy. I could get in and out of any door at Indy. All I had to do is watch. The kids go in and out to go to the portable classrooms. Kids will allow you. They will open the door for you if they think they recognize you. I was able to get in and out of that school. No problem. This is an issue. And it needs to be addressed. I'm not even going to go into what I came for other than I am standing and asking you to support the resolution to make the resolution to not support the vouchers. There's just too many studies. We know it doesn't work. We do not need to fall into that same trap that other states have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have 2 more speakers. Our final 2 speakers are Herbert Reed, followed by Becca Ripley. Oh.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Reed, and I do have 3 daughters that go to Independence High School. I just want to finish up a few things that their mother and I also received a complaint about. It was an incident where Dr. Wise notified us that a student called our youngest a monkey and made monkey gestures to a daughter and a friend. And another incident that we had that was from a teacher, with Elena being the only colored black in there, okay, made the comment, well, she felt uncomfortable. Would you go in a store that said whites only, no blacks allowed? Would somehow made her feel ashamed? How could she answer it? You know, it's ridiculous. And in our opinion, you know, no student should be made to feel inferior. And I do agree, y'all do need to have procedures and policies in place when somebody do make threats, something you can't take lightly these days. Me being a public servant, it's personal, okay? I mean, it could be your kids, any of our kids. If you had a threat, what would you do? Thank you.
Thank you. And I do apologize. We did have one other speaker. We do have Becca Ripley. I'm going to go ahead and have you come up, but we do have Elena Reed that did check in, so we will be calling Elena up after Becca.
Thank you all so much for your hard work. My name is Becca Ripley, and I'm a product of public school education. I'm the daughter of a retired public school teacher who 5 decades ago, as one of 2 newly hired white teachers, desegregated her Vicksburg, Mississippi school, and I'm a granddaughter of a public high school principal. I'm also a parent of Grassland and middle school elementary students. My children's father, a graduate of a prestigious Nashville private school, lobbied hard for our children to follow in his footsteps. But like so many, well, apparently everyone, yay, here tonight, I'm a huge proponent and supporter of public schools. I can't abandon public schools. Vouchers feel like abandonment to me. I believe in investing and supporting free and fair education, and public education's vital role in creating, sustaining, and maintaining strong, diverse, and involved communities. Please go on record as a board, as other boards have done, opposing vouchers with public funds. Voucher programs are rooted in racism and discrimination. Amen. And I think that we have, as we have heard, we are still dealing with a lot of that, and we're not doing it right. And we don't need to feed it more. We stand to lose millions of dollars that are already underfunded public public education system can't afford, and private schools choose their students. Public schools serve everyone. Strong public schools equal strong communities. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Elena Reed.
I'm Elena Reed. I was scared when he said he was going to shoot up all the black people. I have 2 sisters and friends that go to that school. Right after I heard him say all that, I went directly to the principals. And I was like just really scared. I'm still scared till this day to go to that school. Thank you.
Thank you. This does conclude the public comment section of our agenda, and we as a board cannot thank you enough for spending your time with us tonight and coming in and sharing your perspectives. We greatly appreciate your time. And I know it's hard to stay within a minute, and I do want to acknowledge that. So thank you for trying to do that. We appreciate that. Our next item on the agenda is to approve our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Welch. Do we have a second? Ms. Apriya, thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion. And if no discussion, we will move to vote.
The vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. With that vote, we did pass the approval of the agenda, which moves us along to the next item, which is approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion? Ms. Apriya, and do we have a second? Mr. Elliott, or Mr. Mitchell, thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, board members, let's move to a vote.
The vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. That motion passed to approve the consent agenda. And the items on the consent agenda are approval of the January 22nd, 2024 school board meeting minutes and the following board policies for second reading: revenues, fundraising activities, purchasing cards, and credit lines, credit for prior courses, testing programs, and the Family Medical Leave Act policy. The approval of the E-Plan's Title III immigrant grant was also approved. The Middle Tennessee electric easement at Page High School was approved. The Brentwood Middle School video scoreboard. The Sunset Elementary School Gaga ball pit. The St. Barbara Coptic Orthodox Church at Clovercroft Elementary School. The Sozo Church DBA Citizens Church at Perry Creek Elementary School. And the recommendation for field trip fee requests. Our next item on the agenda is communications to the board. Just before we do that, I do want to acknowledge Deputy Randy Purcell. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We appreciate you being here. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, those of you who are in the audience, for coming and speaking at our public comment. Over the years especially, I've been encouraged that our public comment time has been an open time where our community can speak and feel comfortable that they're going to be heard. And so I especially want to thank our student who spoke today. Those of you who followed the board and spent time with our board over these last few years know that we have thoughtfully been working on improving how we serve our students, especially in the context of safety. When I talk about safety, there was one mention of physical safety in the buildings, and folks who know the schools know when you go up to a school these days, it's a very different entry point than what you've seen in prior years. But especially we have worked hard on student safety in relation to each other and with their teachers. And we are thoughtfully working on improving how we respond. Just this year, every one of our principals established a standard for their students at the beginning of the year of what they expected and consequences for behaviors that were threatening to others. We also established a structure where our Human Resources Department actually received information from each of those investigations. And I want everyone to know that we will make sure that in each of those, our Human Resources Department double checks those to make sure that we do have consistency across the district. And I got to tell you, it's a work in progress. It's going to take constant attention, and I very much appreciate you all sharing with us your experience, because we need to hear that regularly as we continue every day, every year to make sure our students are safe. Also, I want to thank our community members who came and spoke about the vouchers today. If I'm not mistaken, one of the speakers mentioned that they watched the work session that our board had, and our board spoke at length about the proposed legislation from the governor. Right now, there's no legislation that's been filed. It still is at the proposal stage for the governor. I encourage you all to go back and watch that discussion that our board had at our work session. We happen to be about 10 days out from our work session, which is actually pretty unusual because of schedules. As I heard it, there were three main themes that were discussed during that time. One, the question of funding, and you know, where might this money come from? How might this affect us? And I'll tell you, as I sit here, I don't know how something might affect us directly if and when it's passed, because we won't know until, number one, until it's passed, and then number two, until students make decisions. But what we do know is that the TISA funding model that we received from the state increased our per pupil funding last year, but it is quite apparent that the state does have some fund balance. The governor has published his budget proposal without any specific legislation related to this being in there. And if I'm not mistaken, the proposal included $144,200,000 for this particular program. I do anticipate that our board will continue to be discussing this. So again, I encourage you all to continue to watch what our board does, and especially pay attention to the state legislature for this and many other bills that are coming up. I got to mention this specifically. Right now, I am very concerned about the law regarding third and fourth grade retention. I know that there's been a lot of discussion at the state level over additional avenues for students to go from fourth grade to fifth grade. We have 134 students and parents who are worried about this upcoming TCAP. We have, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 3,100 fourth graders. Of those, 134 are still concerned about the upcoming TCAP. So there are so many things I encourage you all to pay attention to. Finally, I do want to mention one other bit of information that I think follows the theme of what our public speakers talked about. The state actually published, and the state board approved, the list of reward schools on Friday. We have 31 reward schools, which is a record for us, which broke last year's record, which in turn broke the year before's record. So we're very proud of the team that we have, that we've put together. And I want to thank you, board, for some of those decisions you've made in these last few years to find time for our teachers to collaborate. I sent an email to a parent just a few days ago using some vernacular that I heard regarding those professional learning communities and those teams where those teachers are getting together on a regular basis to evaluate how their students have mastered the standards so that they can make adjustments on the fly in the middle of the school year to their pacing to make sure those students master those standards. I've heard it compared to the difference between a doctor's visit and an autopsy, which is TCAP for us. I know that's kind of an odd comparison, but our teachers are making adjustments in midstream, in the middle of the year, based on those particular student needs. And I'm proud of the work they're doing in ensuring our students' success. As part of that, I want to thank Mrs. Baker and the Clovercroft Elementary Choir who came and sang. Many of you were able to see some of that. I know we weren't broadcasting at that point, but that was a great event for those students, and we appreciate the work they're doing. So with that, Madam Chair, again, finally, I do encourage you all to stay engaged in the work that's being done here in Williamson County Schools. Madam Chair, we will celebrate those 31 schools more specifically next month. Because the announcement came out so close to this meeting, we weren't able to schedule all those principals. We actually have a couple of principals in the audience who get the privilege of coming to 2 straight board meetings because we will invite them back for next month. Madam Chair, that's my report. I know Ms. Birdsong is here to speak to some of our student spotlights, and then I will conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Board members, we are combining our January celebrations and our February celebrations. So we have several students that we will be recognizing this evening. And this is a first for me because I don't recall ever having 2 students earn a perfect PSAT in middle school. And so this is Utkarsh Jha from Mill Creek Middle School. Now, it's a different test. Let me be clear. It's a middle school test, but yet very impressive. So, and this is Siddharth Namajida from Woodland Middle. Now, we also had 7 high school students earn a perfect PSAT. And this is an impressive number as well. This is Parsa Karaloe from Brentwood High School. This is Lucy Wyatt from Brentwood High School. Renej Jamal from Franklin High School. Connor Britt from Independence High School. Huntley Peck from Page High School. Ajay Balaje from Ravenwood High School. And Nathan Phillips from Summit High School. Now, we have 14 students who have earned a perfect ACT score. This is Thomas Bay from Brentwood. This is Maria Chalusi from Brentwood. Ty Glenn, Brentwood. Grace Walter, Brentwood. Natasha Villaruz, Brentwood. Lauren Reeves, Centennial. Cademan Holland, Franklin. Alexandra McDonald, Franklin. Hannah Whitfield, Franklin. Andrew Chatterton, Independence. Kieran Rowe, Independence. Megan Wallace, Nolansville. William Fizzle, Ravenwood. Megan Freeman, Summit. Now, we're going to celebrate students in the area of the arts. And these are all state students as named by the Tennessee Theater Educators Association. And this is Lauren Gilder from Brentwood High School, and she was named All-State in the area of acting and in All-State musical theater. Claire Billingsley from Centennial High School was named to the All-State acting troupe. Franklin High School's Tatum Lander, All-State Acting and All-State Musical Theater. From Franklin High School, Melody Brooke Myers, All-State Acting and All-State Musical Theater. From Page High School, Vismaya Shanapa, All-State Acting and All-State Musical Theater. From Independence High School, this is Ben Allen, All-State Acting. Also from Independence High School, Russell Gargas, All-State Acting. Independence High School, Tristan Valdez, All-State Acting and All-State Musical Theater. Anna Wadsworth, Independence High, All-State Acting. In the area of design and tech, Mary Morelli, Centennial. Kylie Rasmussen, Centennial. Heron Smith, Centennial. Jameson Whitlock, Centennial. From Fairview High School, Owen Keeler in All-State Design and Tech. From Nolansville High School, Ava Adams, All-State Design and Tech. Now, for our All-State Musical Theater students, I know we have a bunch, and I'm going to pause right there and say, if you Mark your calendars for all the fun spring musicals that are coming up, because you guys, if you've never attended one of our high school musicals, wow, they are fabulous. Okay. Back to Brentwood High School. Reagan Schmicker from All-State Musical Theater got off track. Centennial High School, Abigail Levy, Musical Theater. Fairview High School, Kara Newman, Musical Theater. Callista McIntyre from Nolensville High School. Whitney Reamer, Osco from Nolensville High School. From Ravenwood High School, Addison Rogers. And from Summit High School, Landon Wilson. And as we wrap up the arts, we have one athletic team that we want to celebrate. First ever for Williamson County Schools, this is the Tennessee Middle School Athletic Association Class 2A Boys Basketball State Champion from Thompson Station Middle School. So congratulations to all of our students, staff, and their coaches.
Thank you, Carol. And Madam Chair, I actually mentioned three main topics, and I only spoke to one of them because I started talking about fourth grade retention law. And I kind of got onto that. The other concerns that you all spoke to at our work session, including concern over funding, was concern over the accountability standards and what might come from that voucher program. And then third, a concern over our students with disabilities. And where that might lead. So with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Congratulations again to everyone that Carol recognized. It's my favorite part of our agenda. Next item, board chair report. I just want to let everybody know, if you came for public comment and would like to leave and don't want to stay for the voting part of the meeting, you are welcome to leave. We can take a quick couple-minute break so you can exit. You're not going to disrupt us. Under new business is school board budget. First school board budget item is approval of the central cafeteria amendment, supply chain assistance. First award, $993,208 to Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a grant from the USDA for funding school systems based on supply chain struggles that we've had with food service. So I do recommend approval of this particular grant.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Mr. Welch and Ms. Cleveland, seconds. I'll open the floor for discussion. No discussion. Board members, let's cast our votes.
The vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The motion did pass to approve the central cafeteria amendment to the supply chain assistant first award in the amount of $993,000. Next item is the approval of the general purpose fund amendment for disproportionality carryover from IDEA in the amount of $27,999. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have heard us talk about disproportionality funding over the last 5 or 6 years, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. We are no longer under that requirement from the federal government based on disproportionality of discipline. This is a request to move that $27,999 remaining to an appropriate fund for professional development.
Do we have a motion? Ms. Apria, and a second, Mr. Cash. Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Golden, can we maybe get an update on what the statistics are currently for the schools that were under that disproportionality ruling from the federal government? Now,
Sure, I can speak to it generally. I don't have any statistics that I can share specifically related to that, but the issue was related to disproportionate discipline at a school for students with disabilities. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Webb, did I miss any detail of that? So that we were under a plan from the federal government with IDEA funds, Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act funds, to plan a structure and a system that would eliminate that disproportionality of discipline for students with disabilities versus students who were in the who did not have IEPs. Based on the review over these last few years, we are no longer under that requirement to use those IDEA funds for that purpose, because that issue has been resolved statistically. And so the remaining funds that were designated for that are the amount that's here. We're going to roll that into professional development for special education services.
Thank you.
I can email you some specifics.
I'm assuming we're still reporting those numbers up.
Yes, we do report, and actually, in myriad ways, our discipline is reported to the state, who then reports some of that to the federal government. It includes discipline at grade levels, discipline based on what the state generally calls subpopulations. Students with disabilities is one of those.
I just wanted to add, if you Google APR indicators on the Tennessee Department of Ed website, it has all the statistics there, and they report it annually. And it's coming out in a month for this year, by district.
That's right. It is by district, and the current data that's up there is for the 2021-22 school year, if I'm not mistaken. Ending 22, and the ending 23 school year has not yet been published.
Been reported yet. We're working on that right
Ms. Osbrooks. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Super. Board members, if we have no more comments, we can go ahead and cast our votes.
The vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. That motion passed to approve the general purpose school fund amendment for disproportionality carryover from IDEA in the amount of $27,999. Next item is approval of the Central Cafeteria Fund Resolution for Central Cafeteria Excess Fund Balance in the amount of $2 million.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the USDA or the state annually audits our food service budget, any excess beyond 4 months operating expenses, 3 months operating expenses must be designated annually for spending. So it's kind of the opposite of traditional. You actually have to spend down rather than our general budget, which is of course the opposite. So this is a request for approval for you to move that into food service equipment so that we can comply with the requirements related to our cafeterias. I will say one bit related to that is we did receive substantial grants the last 2 years related to food service, and that is largely the reason why we have this fund balance.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Welch, and do we have a second? Mr. Beasley, thank you.
Do recommend approval.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Board members, let's cast our votes.
Vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Motion passed to approve Central Cafeteria Fund Resolution for Central Cafeteria Excess Fund Balance in the amount of $2,033,008.65. Last item under budget is the approval of family tuition, which is an annual agenda item. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, annually, we make a recommendation and you vote on the family tuition rate. I want to mention a couple of specific items. Number one, we serve anyone who lives in the county in our schools. Occasionally, there are those who have a contract to move into the county, and we allow those students to start school at the beginning of the year, even if they might be moving in October with a non-contingent contract. That's one example of how this family tuition rate might apply. We charge them on the front end, and if they move in that semester, we actually reimburse them for that based on the funding we receive. Based on that, Ms. Farmer prepares a recommendation related to the funding that we receive from the county, because the state will fund us if a student's here, but this covers the additional county costs for those who don't live in county. As part of that, the final line that she has in her memo, I just want to bring your attention to, the employee rate will be $2,000 for the first year and follow the SOP that we created after you all voted a couple of years ago. I've given too much information probably, but I want to let you know that the reduced rate that you voted on for teachers 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, our revenue has been almost the same these last 2 years. In other words, we have had more teachers come in using that, and we have had no substantial change in the revenue line related to that, even though the cost or the receipt has gone down per student.
Super. Do we have a motion? Mr. Mitchell, in a second. Ms. Apria, thank you. And we have Mr. Brown on the floor.
Mr. Golden, I'm wondering at this point in time, how many students roughly or teachers have students taking advantage of this program, out-of-county program?
It's, you all, Rachel, Ms. Farmer, you may have that off the top of your head because we talked about that yesterday, and I'm afraid I'm going to get the number wrong. It's in the low hundreds.
Total teachers participating as a comparison in 22-23 was 59. This year we have 133. And in the students, there were 71 students in 22-23, and this year there's 153.
So on its face, that appears that it's been a good recruiting tool for our teachers.
Is there any reason to believe that, I know we dealt with this issue a couple of years ago about whether or not to eliminate it entirely, and there's some disagreement among others in county government about that, but I know some of us had advocated for doing that. Is there any reason to believe that if we took that down to zero, that would be a significantly better recruitment tool, or is it only marginal, or do we think that matters at all?
Thank you for the question. We do occasionally, of course, have people, some of our staff members ask about it. I will say the response we got 2 years ago was quite positive because it was such a substantial change. We'll have a discussion about that. I appreciate you bringing that up. In our budget, we're still in our budget talks. We have not had a discussion in that context. I will tell you right now, we are staffed for teachers at about 99%. Special education remains a big challenge. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're somewhere around 92% for special education teachers and continue to compete really hard with our neighbors. So we'll examine that question and see if there's a possibility that could help.
My quick math says that would be, based on 153 students, would be $306,000. I mean, maybe not the best year when it's a potential deficit that we're trying to solve, but I think something's still worth considering.
Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Golden, do you have any idea, maybe Ms. Farmer might as well, how many teachers we currently have that live outside the county, live outside Williamson County?
Total, we do not have that. I will say, generally speaking, last time we checked, actually, Ms. Hall, I think you were about to speak to it.
I think our in-county residents is close to 70%.
So it's under 70%?
30% out of county.
About 30% live outside.
So is that, if we were to graph that over a period of years, would we show that as out-of-county teachers or teachers who live outside Williamson County? Would we show that number increasing, staying the same, decreasing?
I don't think we have enough data on that yet with the change in the tuition.
So we can't really attribute the growth in teachers taking advantage of this towards whether we have more teachers that are unable to afford to live in Williamson County or not, I guess. That's really where I'm getting at,
Yeah.
is that I know that we have difficulty, the sheriff's department has difficulty, pretty much all city municipalities employees are also struggle to live in this county based upon their pay. So my question is, I'd like to understand whether that's a percentage, that 70%, near 70% of teachers who live in the county, whether that number is growing or decreasing over the last 3 or 4 years. And I would also support turning this into a benefit to where it's if you're a teacher in the school district, you're allowed to bring your children to the district.
Thank you for that. There are some ways that we could do some approximations with zip codes. I know your chair and I have had that discussion. I will tell you also one question that we've asked ourselves, we haven't quite figured out how to get that data, is age of teachers, right? Because I have heard the anecdotes from experienced teachers. I couldn't buy my house now, right? I was able to buy it 20 years ago, but I can't now. So we're still doing a lot of research and digging related to some of those items. I will tell you, one of the focus points that we've talked about publicly repeatedly is making sure that we provide a professional living income for our teachers. And I actually spoke to our building level teachers representatives about that very issue last week.
So, and last question, if I might, is do we still offer this benefit to bus drivers? I know years ago we passed allowed bus drivers to bring their out-of-county bus drivers who live outside of Williamson County to bring their children into the district for free. Is that still a benefit that we
That
offer?
particular benefit that was piloted is not still there, but all our full-time employees who live out of county can send their children to the district based on this reduced tuition rate.
Mr. Brown? Okay. All right, do we have any further discussion on this topic? Okay, Mr. Golden, your
Recommend
recommendation?
approval.
Board members, let's cast our votes.
The vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Motion passed to approve the family tuition rates.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Jumping ahead of me. Next item on the agenda is approval of school fees, which is also an annual agenda item. Mr. Golden, go for it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Annually, based on some state parameters, we recommend to you approval of our school fees. And I always make sure I point out that the state refers to these as fees in their regulations, but they really aren't fees. They are voluntary payments. It's really, in essence, a fundraiser where we ask parents for curricular needs to donate a particular amount. That includes the curricular time, and also we do have some extracurricular fees as well. Related to that, the state does allow schools to say that paying of those extracurricular fees is a condition to participation, but we actually don't do that either. We allow students to participate whether or not they pay the quote-unquote fees. From a change standpoint, this year's fees include some increases largely related to us making a decision to increase security at our extracurricular events, which means paying for sheriff's office staff to be present at our activities. Certainly open to any questions that you may have related to these.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Welch, and a second? Ms. Apria? Okay. Well, open the floor. Mr. Galbraith.
Thank you. Also on the annual agenda is me objecting to the fees that we charge our parents for academics, and I got the numbers from Rachel from this past year, and and I lost my spot, but it's in the $900,000 range for, $928,000 for the high school and $283,000 for middle school. I would equate the classroom supply fee as largely a request for a donation at the elementary school, so that's not really my concern. It's the middle and high school fees, and they're granted we've made great strides in how we communicate this. So no longer are we holding. We're not giving extra credit, and we're not holding this for a grade or anything like that. As far as I'm concerned, which were issues years ago, back when I got on the board. But I just find it, I find that if we would go to our parents and actually treat this as a fundraiser rather than treat this as teachers asking for money for their supplies, we could vastly we raise 10 times this amount from our boosters and our PTOs and our athletic boosters. And if we would just flip this on its head, we could raise more money and actually make it a donation rather than charging our families this and calling it voluntary. Even I know it's not, we're not, there's no ramifications, but it's not looked at as voluntary. I bet we have a very, very large compliance rate with this, but I just have a fundamental issue, and I think we could do so much better and partner with our parents rather than charging them these fees for algebra and chemistry. Thanks.
Welch.
Thank you. I'm going to sort of take a little bit of different angle on frustration with the fees, and I'm going to tie it back to your comments earlier, Mr. Golden, that here we are with a budget deficit where we're trying to fund our school system, somewhere around 42nd to 45th nationally in what the state spends on education per student. We're at the bottom half of the state. And here we are with a proposal from the governor to give nearly twice as much money to private schools in the place of a voucher, which I will say I'm agnostic on vouchers. I don't care. I don't care where you go to school, and I'm open to it. But the concept of, this apples to oranges, it's a separate but unequal set of systems where one has almost twice as much money, has no oversight, is allowed to discriminate against kids based upon their special needs, religion, ethnicity, what have you. So I know that's kind of not what this is about, and I'm going off a little bit of a tangent here, but for me, it's interrelated and it's tied in. It's a frustration point. And I know we didn't take up a resolution tonight, but I hope that we can look at this again next month, and we'll have the courage individually to kind of go on the record with this and say what we say. Thank you.
Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I kind of like to feel like I become somewhat consistent like Jay has in asking this question. So on the fees that are listed as, quote, required fees, can you provide me assurance that students who are not able to pay these fees are not prohibited from participating in these extracurricular activities?
Yes. They are not prohibited, and we actually had that specific discussion as our leadership team was reviewing the fee recommendations. And Dr. Webb, I'm going to invite you to speak to that as well, if you would.
Question, Mr. Mitchell. Absolutely any student or family who can't meet these required fees, conversations with their coach, the school administration, they'll ensure that they are still able to participate. Oftentimes our booster clubs, if there's an offset that needs to be fundraised, booster clubs help cover that difference if there are several students who can't pay their fees and there's still things that need to be purchased for the athletic program. But no student is turned away for participating in our extracurriculars due to an inability to pay a fee.
And can you assure me that policy is communicated out to students and families on an annual basis. So because I mean, we're talking marching band, football, cheerleading, bowling. I mean, there's pretty much almost every extracurricular activity that we have from an athletic standpoint or a art standpoint has this required fee to it. And the term required makes me concerned that we could be having students that are interested in participating in this, but are somewhat fearful of coming forward asking for assistance. Embarrassed, yes, I think would be a good way of putting it.
I can verify that for you. It's communication that happens typically for us with school administration at the beginning of the year when those fees are typically collected. But we do have fees that are collected all throughout the year, and that is a constant refrain in our communication to school principals.
My last question is, as I'm saying, this is athletic fee is per person, per sport, and CTE eSport. Can you tell me what CTE eSport is that we're charging $125 a student to participate in?
Esports are electronic activities. I want to use the word games.
Yeah, I'm going to use the word games
Yeah.
too, and we're charging $125 a student to participate in that?
That's the cost of participation. So those activities, those games that the students play in competition with each other by serving on the esports team, that's what it costs to purchase those materials in order for the students to compete with one
And I
another.
will say also, if I'm not mistaken, for some of those competitions, they actually pay some administrative costs so that whoever's putting on the competition can meet those expenses, whether it's judging, referees, that kind of thing. That's typically what most of those expenses go to.
Referees in esports?
Yeah.
That is
Believe it or
correct.
not, there's anytime you hit competition, there needs to be an arbiter. I will tell
Fair
you
enough,
that.
fair enough. I get that point. Thank you for that.
And Mr. Mitchell, I do want to specifically mention what you said, that it is listed, these documents are listed as voluntary fees and required fees. So thank you for that comment, so that we have that discussion in detail.
No further Mr. Welch.
Thank you. I'm sorry for just the last minute jumping in there, but I think also a good moment, I think, just for us to recognize and thank our PTOs that has been alluded to tonight, Mr. Golden, Dr. Webb, of how much they do contribute and give, and the generosity of heart and spirit across all of our activities, whether they're sports or band or other clubs. Our parents are certainly generous and care, and we could not do this without them. So I want to take that opportunity to just say that we appreciate them so very much.
Thank you for that. And actually, Mr. Galbraith mentioned, I think you said 10 times this amount. If I'm not mistaken, our PTOs and boosters donated somewhere around $11 million last year. I'm sorry, it's up to 13 now. Okay, so we could not do what we do without our parent support. So we do very much appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Cash?
Madam Chair, I was just kind of calculating here. I got 3 high school students, and we're looking at about $400 in fees. And AP classes included in that. But I've not heard my son complain, but that just grabbed a hold of me when I just started really reading this. So, I tend to go along with Jay on this. I think it's time we started helping out with this stuff. And I know the PTOs and everyone, fundraisers, those are on the emails every day, and they do work. And I think we could probably do better with fundraisers. Thank you.
We'll take your comments to heart. As we mentioned, we are in the budget discussion, so we'll have a leadership team discussion about that and what that might look like, and really drill deeply into that question about what this might mean for our community.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you. At the risk of belaboring this even further, it made me think as we were talking about this that we had a discussion, I'm not sure when it was, a year or 18 months ago, about the foundation, the education foundation that's out there, that exists as an entity, but I think probably everyone would agree we don't do a lot with it anymore, or the foundation doesn't do a lot. Maybe that's not a fair statement, but it doesn't appear that a lot is happening with the foundation. I just wonder, as it's more of an observation than a suggestion, but I wonder if that's a vehicle to do some of the things that have been referred to, that Jay mentioned and Dan and others, that if we're really thinking about a way to get away from the fee schedule or the fee model and go to a more donation model where it's tax deductible and the way that it is with, I presume, with most of our PTO donations, would that be a vehicle to do that? And then maybe that's also a way to elevate this with the corporate community, that there's a specific thing that they're giving money towards, so it's not just an open-ended donation. Just a thought.
Thank you for that thought. I do want to speak to it briefly. You're right about the foundation from a fundraising perspective. It's they got started and actually had one employee years ago, and a large proportion of their fundraising was spent on the overhead, and that's been years. We have had some discussions with those who are still responsible for that corporate entity. And there's some discussions with our business community about, is there a way? So we're still working on that.
Mr. Galbraith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to add, there's never going to be a good time to get rid of a revenue source. This was added in the recession because of a budget shortfall, and that's when we initiated the fees. This is before my time here. It was about 2008, 2009, I believe. And since then, we've had plenty of opportunity to do it, but you never see a revenue source go away. And so it's gonna take an effort. And I appreciate you saying that you'll look into it, because I'm proposing to kind of take a revenue source away and replace it with a bigger revenue source is potentially the answer. And I know this is not the time and place to figure that out, but we'll hopefully we can try. Thanks.
No further discussion. Mr. Golden, do we have your recommendation?
Recommend approval.
Thank you. Board members, cast your votes.
The vote is 7 yes, 2 no.
Thank you, and the motion did pass to approve the school fees. Last item on the agenda is the approval of the Encore Summer Enrichment Program fees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Annually, our elementary schools host what we call Encore program fees. For lack of a better phrase, and I'm looking over at Dr. Royer, it's fun kind of camp kind of activities for our students during the summer. We do have the fee recommendation based on our need to have you approve any fees. This happens to be the exact same dollar amount as last year, so I do recommend approval.
Thank you. And do we have a motion? Mr. Welch, and a second, Mr. Beasley. Thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion. Okay. No discussion. Let's cast our votes.
The vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. And the motion did pass to approve the Encore Summer Enrichment Program fees. That was our final item on the agenda. Thank you so much for an efficient meeting forward. The meeting is adjourned.